I have so many questions on that type of stuff because there are so many nuances, right, based on business setup. And that's something that our community asks us a lot is, hey, do I need an LLC? Should I be an S Corp? Or I usually just tell people LLC because it's usually the generally the easiest one for them to grasp. It's so easy to set up now online too. It's pretty straightforward. But when it comes to the tax implications of full-time employees, I mean, the market's changing, right? When it comes to employment in terms of even in the 10 short years that I've been running agencies, the request from people to be full-time W-2 employees has drastically gone down. Most people actually prefer to be 1099s because they've either got other things going on or they've got their own LLC set up that, you know, can help them with taxes or write-offs or things like that. So they think, like, what are the benefits of full-time versus 1099 in today's climate?
That's a great question too. So when you have a full-time employee, you are locked into that employee. You are going to pay them presumably a salary. You're going to pay that to them whether or not they're working or not, right? It's going to happen every 2 weeks or semi-monthly, monthly, whatever it's going to be. Weekly, you're locked into paying them. Now, when you have a contractor, you're not. It's the exact opposite. So theoretically, you can utilize that capacity only when you need it. And then theoretically, that's going to make it cheaper. Now, what you're generally going to see is that contractors on an hourly basis are going to be a little bit more expensive, but remember, you're using less of them theoretically. And so therefore it's going to be a little bit cheaper. And if you don't need them, you don't hire them, you don't send them that project, whatever it's going to be. You have a contractor, let's just say that they are going to charge you $100 an hour. Let's just say that they're going to work on a project that is 1 hour. Well, then you're on the hook for $100. You're going to pay them $100 check, flat, done. Super simple. Employees, not so simple. You've got payroll tax. So you're going to be on the hook for 1/2 of the payroll tax. That's going to be 7.65%, super high level of the wages. So that $100 now turns into 100, just for argument's sake, let's just say it turns into $108, a little bit more expensive, obviously. When you've got a contractor, you have shifted the burden of that payroll tax to them. Whereas when you've got an employee, you're splitting it. So those are kind of the tax implications. Now, super important point in that whole entire discussion is you don't really get to determine whether or not you have a contractor or an employee. It is facts and circumstances based. So if you are controlling how somebody works, where they work, if you're providing equipment, software, that sort of stuff, if you're providing training, if you're telling them exactly how they need to do their job, when they need to do their job, that's an employee, regardless of whether or not they're working 5 hours, 10 hours, 100 hours, doesn't matter. Like, that is an employee. If you are controlling them, the control is really that. If you had to really drill down, that's the word that I would use. If you are controlling how and when and why and where and all that stuff that they're doing the work, that's an employee. On the flip side, if you have a contractor and maybe they're going to work at 11 o'clock tonight because, they had a big family day, or maybe they're going to work early in the morning, they're going to use their own laptop, they're going to use their own software, they've got their own process, maybe they've got a team, maybe they don't, who knows? You just said, I want this result from this project or whatever, and they deliver it and it's done. That's a contractor. But you don't get to determine like, oh, well, they only work 5 hours, so obviously they're a contractor. No, that's not how it works. It depends on the relationship and how that works. So that's the really important point. So to distill that down, you don't get to control whether or not they're a contractor or an employee. That's facts and circumstances. And all things being equal, employees are more expensive than contractors.
So when you say you don't have the choice, is that legally, or like, I don't think ethically is the right term, but that's the only way I can say it. For example, I have contractors that work for me full time, right? They don't work for anyone else. They have chosen to be paid as a contractor because they believe it's beneficial to them. They're married, they have benefits, they don't need benefits, they don't have any interest in that. They believe that they can make more off of the dollar that I pay them from a tax perspective if they get paid just a flat fee of whatever per month. I know there are some legal implications to somebody should be a W-2. I don't know if there's any way to enforce that. Is that like a legal conversation, or is that more of just like a ethics as an employer rule?
Yeah, this is not an ethical thing. This is definitely more serious and more clear cut than that. Put it that way. I would suggest that anybody who wants more information on that, I think it's like a 9-point bulleted test that the IRS has on the website. It's either 9 or 13 bullets. It's been a minute since I've looked at it. I just can't remember. But if you just Google contractor versus employee IRS, it'll pop right up and it'll tell you like, these are how you classify these people or not. And these are the things that you should consider. I am by no means the payroll expert in my firm. I have people who are way better at payroll than I am, but I do believe that there's also some Department of Labor considerations in there as well. And this isn't just a federal issue, it's a state issue as well. And there's state withholding issues and yada, yada, yada. There's a lot to consider. It is not a simple topic, but that is not a call that you make as the employer or as the agency owner. It's fairly clear cut. Those aren't like super hard and fast rules, but it's fairly clear cut. Like if you're making 6 or 7 of these tests, whether or not they're a contractor or an employee, and 6 or 7 of them are saying that they're an employee. Like, they're an employee. And always, the most conservative approach is always to lean toward employee. So I would always encourage agency owners to lean that way.
Yeah, it is just significantly more expensive. And
yeah,
it's not just the financial cost too, it's also the responsibility cost, I guess is what it is, to an employee versus a contractor. A contractor inherently understands that this is short term, right? Not long term.
Oh yeah.
But an employee is built in and bought in for the long haul. And then there's, of course, from an agency point of view, just a culture point of view, employees perform better because they're bought into the culture. There's obviously benefits of employees versus 1099s as well. I've just seen a massive shift in the market from people who used to come in being like, I need benefits, I need 401k, I need these things, especially I think in the digital space where you have this skill set as a marketer, as a salesperson, whatever it is, you have ability to make income freelancing very easily. Like I'm actually interviewing for a content basically director at our agency, and interviewing a lot of people that were in-house at B2B companies, and every single person I've interviewed is like, oh no, I freelance too. They're in-house, but it's just a skill set that is in such high demand that you can pick up an extra $5,000 in revenue income pretty easily by freelancing if you got a few hours. It's the waters are just becoming a little bit muddier in terms of those things, in my opinion.